Hello and welcome to She Plays Weekly. I'm Preston Bradshaw. Let's get into what's happening in women's sports this week. Naomi Osaka has withdrawn from the French Open after her decision to skip press conference obligations in order to protect her mental health led to her being fined and threatened with expulsion from the tournament. It's a complicated issue with multiple points of view, but it's not a good look for the great and powerful tennis gods. This thing got messy when it didn't need to, and it sucks for everyone involved, but mainly for Osaka. This woman stood up for herself and what she needed to be healthy. They told her to shut up and obey, and so she left. Because guess what? She is the highest earning female athlete in the world, and she can afford to take this stand. Now their ratings get to suffer, and she gets what looks like a much needed break. Hopefully this will lead to some real change in how athletes relate to the media, but right now, it's just another reason to love Naomi Osaka. The New York Liberty waived Layshia Clarendon last week to make room on their roster, and about 4 seconds later, the Minnesota Lynx snapped them right up, which turned out to be a pretty great move, since Clarendon turned around and immediately carried the Lynx to their first win of the season over a strong Connecticut team in overtime on Sunday. I know the Liberty did what they had to do here, but this also kinda has superhero origin story written all over it, so they might want to watch out. On the NCAA side, we remain in the season of absolutely everything happening at once, but we saw a lot of firsts this week that are worth mentioning. Boston College won their first ever national title in lacrosse, taking down Syracuse 16-10 on Monday. Texas won the national championship in rowing on Sunday, also their first ever, and Ole Miss took home the women's golf national title last Wednesday, which was the first women's national championship the school has ever won. So there's been a lot happening, but don't breathe just yet because the Women's College World Series starts today. ESPN released some new WNBA viewership numbers last week, and spoiler alert, people do care about women's basketball. I mean, we knew this, but there are a lot of internet boys who don't, so it's good to just bring it up once in a while. The league averaged 357,000 viewers over its first 5 games, which is up 74% from 2020 and 45% from 2019. I love it. I'll never get tired of it. Keep giving it to me. Men's basketball fans are coming out of quarantine acting foolish this week. There have been 4 separate incidents of fans throwing stuff at players, which is just disgusting. To all the fans who do know how to behave themselves, might I suggest women's sports? We're fun, we're nice, we don't run on the court in the middle of games. Join us. And finally, the Orlando Pride are 4 games into their regular season and they are undefeated, which is a franchise record and a real surprise after their recent winless streak that lasted over 600 days. Things are apparently turning around big time for the Pride. They took down both North Carolina and Portland last week, which absolutely no one was expecting, but all I can say is Happy Pride Month. We've got a great show for you tonight. Britt Brown of Athletes Unlimited Lacrosse is here. Plus, we'll go through some of the WNBA icons that everyone should know. But before we get to that, Simone Biles has made history time and time again. And last week, she outdid herself when she landed a skill no female gymnast has ever done in competition. Unfortunately, now some people are concerned about her dominance in the sport. For more on that, let's take a deep dive. Simone Biles needs no introduction. We all know her, we all love her, or so we thought. Apparently she's too good now, and yet despite how very good she is, she's not getting the scores that she deserves. As we well know, gymnastics is intense. Everything has to be perfect in order for anyone to be successful. Simone Biles is the closest thing I know to perfect, and her skills far exceed anything that anyone else is doing. She is leaps and bounds ahead of the competition, but her scores don't reflect that fact. I couldn't even tell you all the names of the skills Simone Biles has brought to the sport, except maybe the 4 that are named after her. And that alone should tell you that she ought to be knocking it out of the park at every competition. And she is, but the judges are stopping her from going even further. Last week, the judges gave her Yurchenko double pike, the first in competitive history for women's gymnastics, just a 6.6 provisional score. 6.6 out of 10. Are you serious? The score was comparable to other vaults that weren't nearly as risky and had way less flair. How could anything else compare to this historic vault? How could that score not be higher? I hate to give gymnastics any more flack because it's been a rough few years over there, but they deserve it at this point. Simone Biles is out here doing the most to improve the sport and getting stopped dead in her tracks because the judges don't want her margin of victory to be too big. Everyone knows Simone Biles is going to win once she gets out and starts doing her thing. The only question is by how much. Gymnastics isn't like other sports where you can score or earn points along the way. The judges start with a potential score that they think the skill merits, and then they dock from there when the gymnast makes mistakes. According to this system, Simone Biles should be starting way higher than everyone else and therefore should have plenty of room for error. Errors that, by the way, aren't even happening as far as I can tell, but still. So her score should be much, much higher than the competition, right? Wrong. The judges have been giving her skills much lower starting values than they deserve because they don't want to reward her for taking risks. I didn't make that up. They literally said they don't want to encourage other gymnasts to risk injury by trying skills that put them in harm's way. And hey, keep your athletes safe. I can get behind that sentiment. Gymnastics is an inherently dangerous sport, and you should definitely teach your athletes not to attempt skills that they can't land. But Biles can land them, and she shouldn't be punished for being so far beyond her peers. Professional basketball does not have a height limit to level the playing field, so why does gymnastics get to do this? And we can't leave out the fact that Biles is a black woman. I wish I could say that race has nothing to do with it, but unfortunately I don't think I can. There is a history of trying to harness black excellence in sports and then getting all threatened when black athletes become the best. This is a pattern that's been repeated throughout sports history. When black athletes come into a sport and do well, the powers that be rush to take away their perceived advantages by targeting rules at them. When black basketball players came into the college game after desegregation, there was actually a push to ban the slam dunk because of the unfair advantage it could create. And you can see how well that one worked out for them. I can't imagine that gymnastics judges will be able to get away with this forever, but for now, it's just ridiculous, and everyone knows it. Simone Biles is dominant in gymnastics for a reason. She's just the best out there, and messing with her scores won't change that. This pearl-clutching concern about a black athlete being too good is a play we've seen before, and despite what the judges say, people can see right through it. How about we stop trying to control dominant athletes and focus on the innovation they bring to sports instead? Some little girl out there is gunning to catch Simone Biles one day, and I think handicapping her now does that kid a disservice. That was your deep dive. We'll be right back with Britt Brown. All right, our guest tonight is the goalie for the upcoming first ever Athletes Unlimited lacrosse season. She played for the Universities of Virginia and Pennsylvania, made several NCAA tournament appearances, and won all region and all Ivy honors along the way. Britt, how are you?
I am good. I'm happy to be here with you today. I'm excited to talk about lacrosse and Athletes Unlimited and just women's lacrosse growing in general. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you're here. So you're headed into the first ever AU lacrosse season. Can you just tell me a little bit about like how you got involved with that and what you're looking forward to about the season?
Yeah. So to be honest, it really came out of the blue. I was lucky enough to have a great junior and senior year at Penn. And after 2017, when I graduated, I really thought that I was, putting the cleats up, as they say, and I was done. And I was just going to coach club, coach high school, just because I love the game. And I got a call early on in 2020 about playing lacrosse again. And I was like, I don't know. Let me think about it. And, they just kept calling for a couple of weeks. And finally, they were able to pick the right people to call me and convince me.
So you were a hard sell. They had to get you.
They had to sell me because I'm also a bond trader, which is why you might hear some dings in the background for anyone listening. I trade mortgages on a daily basis. So there's it's the second most liquid market in the world on the fixed income side. So, right, I have a full-time job where I'm working, anywhere from 70 to 80 plus hour weeks. So to have to move to DC and play lacrosse at the same time of having this job is a large task. And so there is some convincing that had to go on, but I think the unfortunate part about our game and what we're trying to change by making women's lacrosse more visible, especially with our media partnerships that got announced yesterday with Fox Sports and CBS, is to make the game more diverse and to make the game more equitable. And in order to do that, to be honest, as we've all seen, representation matters. And so it's unfortunate that we don't have as many Black and brown people playing this game at the highest levels in D1. And then obviously on the US team, and then hopefully now pro. And I think for me, the real change really came when I thought about individuals who might be watching this game and not seeing someone who has a similar background to them, or who looks similar to them on the field. And so why would you ever think then that you could get on the field? Some people have the personality where they're made to break, glass ceilings day in and day out, and they want to do that and they want to grind, but not everyone has that. And so representation matters to display to those individuals that they can reach their goals and achieve their dreams. So for me, that was really the straw that I guess broke the camel's back. Was that I knew I needed to represent something more than myself this summer, regardless of how I play or how the season goes for me. It's a much bigger picture than that. And so hopefully that changes the game.
Yeah. And I'll skip ahead a little bit here because you are talking about it already. You do some work regarding that with City Lax. Could you tell me a little bit about that and how you got into that through your lacrosse career?
Yeah. So City Lax was founded by Matt Levine, who also founded Doc's Lacrosse. Doc's Lacrosse is a nonprofit as well in New York City, but it was more so like an after-school program that anyone could get their kids involved in lacrosse from kindergarten through middle school. And I was playing a soccer game one day, and my dad, who still works at Riverdale Country School, opens up the fields, and Docs was playing on the field after my soccer game. And Matt knew my dad and came over to him and said, we need a lacrosse goalie. Would Britt jump in the goal? And my dad was like, yeah, sure. Like, she's not doing anything, but like, we don't have any equipment. He was like, no, don't worry. Like, I'll take care of everything. Then after the game, Matt was like, she's actually not that bad. Like, does she want to play? And my dad was like, you want to play? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, and my dad was like, okay. Like, and we just started getting into lacrosse. And to this day, Matt has been a large mentor and sponsor of my life beyond lacrosse. And that's why I wanted to get involved with City Lax. City Lax services anywhere on a given year from 5,000 to 7,000 New York City public school students, middle school and high school, and we work directly with their schools. And to put sticks in these kids' hands, it elevates their life, and it also displays to them not just the importance of working hard on the field, but also working hard into the classroom so they can receive opportunities later on in life that maybe they would not have without the sport. And for me, that is totally true. My dad is a maintenance worker at Riverdale, who's now like the 24/7 guy. We live on campus, and he basically manages all the alarm systems and security, et cetera, if anything ever goes wrong. And he didn't go to college. He was a Coca-Cola truck driver before that, and then got a job at the private school because he wanted me to go to private school and knew that'd be a way for me to get in. And so for me, I knew that lacrosse was going to elevate my life, as it elevated the life of a lot of my rich peers. And I wasn't rich, and earned every cent that I have right now. And I've seen what the game can do connection-wise to get you to that next level in life. And that's why I wanted to join City Lax, because that's what City Lax is doing for these kids. It is opening them up to an affluent part of society that they may not have interacted with if they did not have access. And I think that's huge, because at the end of the day, it's going to be connections that get you to that next stage of life. And so for me, I am very humbled and very proud to be sitting on the board of City Lax and being able to give back to a program that has done so much for me.
God, I mean, that's an incredible program, an incredible story. I wish we could talk to you all day because I have so many questions.
I know, right?
We're going to move on because we have other things. We're going to be back a little bit later with more from Britt when we are going to get you ready for the Athletes Unlimited lacrosse season. So stick around. There are so many male athletes out there who have become household names for playing even one great season. I can name you 10 male basketball players off the top of my head right now who are famous for what they brought to the game, and I don't even watch the NBA, like, at all. Your average person can't say the same for WNBA players, though. Even someone like me, who, I don't know if you can tell, cares a lot about women's sports, might not know about some of the most important figures in the league. Female athletes aren't highlighted in pop culture the way men are, so they don't get the chance to become icons the way men do. And we think that sucks. So, since the WNBA season is in full swing, we wanted to take the opportunity to introduce 3 icons from WNBA history that absolutely everyone should know in a segment we call Get Schooled. Okay, first off, let me say that this is so far from a comprehensive list. You have no idea how hard it was to pick 3 players, so don't worry, there will still be plenty of basketball excellence left to study up on when we're done here. But you gotta start somewhere, and where better to begin than with the first ever MVP of the WNBA, Cynthia Cooper Dyke. Actually, she won the first 2 MVP awards in league history, in 1997 and 1998. Cooper played in the WNBA for only 5 seasons, but her impact was enormous. She was an incredible player in college, leading USC to back-to-back national championships when she was in school. But when she graduated, there was no pro league in the US, so she had to go overseas to keep her basketball career alive. She played for more than 10 years in Italy and Spain until the WNBA held its first allocation draft in 1997, and Cooper was selected to the Houston Comets, a team that would become a dynasty in the early years of the league. During her time in the WNBA, Cooper won 4 straight WNBA championships with the Comets and received the Finals MVP award all 4 times. Along with teammates Cheryl Swoops and Tina Thompson, she led Houston through a dominant stretch that had people comparing them to Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls. Of course, this dynasty didn't get a 10-episode TV series, but we're working on that. Cooper was also a 3-time All-Star and a 4-time All-WNBA selection, and she remains the only player to receive back-to-back MVP honors. She also led the league in scoring in 3 consecutive years, and she still holds the highest player efficacy rating in the WNBA to this day. She made a ridiculous impact for such a short career, and she did it all at age 34. Cooper was the first player inducted to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in 2010, and her impact on basketball in the US really can't be overstated. So, if you don't know her, now you do. Add Cynthia Cooper Dyke to your list of WNBA legends because she clearly belongs there. Next up is Tamika Catchings, a star player who entered the league as the 3rd overall draft pick in 2001 and stuck with the Indiana Fever through her entire 15-year career. Catchings had an incredible run in the league. She helped Indiana to its only championship in 2012, was MVP in 2011, and got about a million other honors, including 10-time All-Star, 12-time All-WNBA, 12-time All-Defensive Team, Rookie of the Year in 2002, and Finals MVP in 2012. Oh, and she has 3 Olympic gold medals. Catchings is also famous for recording the first ever quintuple double. Yep, you heard me right, quintuple, back in high school. She was an incredibly versatile player, obviously, and she played a big part in moving the league forward in that respect. She's also hearing impaired and has spoken about how that disability has made her better than most at reading plays before they happened. And that claim certainly holds up, because Catchings is still the all-time WNBA steals leader today. Our final icon of the night is one of the best-known names in women's basketball, but we're not resting until even your uncle, who's never willingly watched a women's sport in his life, knows her name. She is the one and only Cheryl Swoops. Swoops is another of the original allocation players who started the league, and she was also a crucial part of that Houston Comets dynasty. She played for 13 seasons in the WNBA, and along the way, she picked up 4 consecutive championships, 6 All-Star honors, 7 All-WNBA selections, and 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. Swoops also has 3 gold medals and a national championship with Texas Tech, just as a bonus. In that national championship game, Swoops scored 47 points, which is the most anyone, male or female, has ever scored in an NCAA championship game. She's also one of only 3 people in league history who have won MVP 3 separate times. The other 2 are Lisa Leslie and Lauren Jackson, but we gotta save those for next time because there are too many icons to work into one segment. So, you get it. She's on another level. She was the first player ever to sign with the WNBA, and she has remained one of its greatest players. She quickly became one of the faces of the growing league. She was in the first ever TV ad campaign and famously went one-on-one with Michael Jordan when people kept comparing them to one another, which I think is an honor on both sides. She was inducted to the Naismith Hall of Fame in 2016, and this is a big one, she was the first female athlete to get a signature shoe. They were called air swoops, appropriately. Swoops was one of the first female athletes to gain that level of visibility, and if you talk to the WNBA stars of today, plenty of them will name her as a reason they saw a path to the pros for themselves. All three of these women deserve to be household names, and not just in households that watch the WNBA religiously. So do me a favor and talk about them. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your pets. Just keep talking about these icons and what they brought to the game of basketball. Because just like the stars of the men's game, they deserve to be known. That was Get Schooled. We'll be right back with more from Britt Brown. All right, we are back with Britt Brown. All right, we've got a new segment for you tonight. Like we said before, Athletes Unlimited Lacrosse has its first season starting in July, starring the one and only Britt Brown, of course. Number one star, get pumped. It's a really innovative new format, and it's a little weird in a good way, but most people haven't seen this before. We're trying to be informed women's sports fans on this show. So I've asked Britt to come up here and help us get up to speed on how this new league is going to work. So let's break down some of the keys to Athletes Unlimited Lacrosse in a segment we call Huddle Up. All right, so we're going to run through 5 key elements of understanding Athletes Unlimited Lacrosse. We've got Coach Britt here to help us out. She's going to just give us the quick rundown on each one so that you can be ready to watch the season in July. All right, here we go. So first key, the season. Tell us how the season works.
So the season is going to work in one location, Metro DC area. It is going to be a short season. We're going from preseason starting July 12th. You'll be able to catch us all on TV starting July 19th, with our last games wrapping up on August 22nd. We are super pumped because it's going to be an intense game. We've shortened the field. We've shortened the shot clock to 60 seconds. So we're expecting a lot of shooting, a lot of intense back and forth, hopefully some great trick shots. And we are excited to bring the game onto Fox Sports and CBS Sports.
Yes, and I'm so excited. It's a great place to get into lacrosse. Like, it's going to be exciting. So come watch if you haven't seen it before. All right, key number 2, the teams. How do teams work here?
So the teams are really just going to be, everyone's going to have a color, but that color is going to rotate every single week. So there are going to be 4 captains that rotate every week. Sometimes it might be the same though, because they might just be crushing it all season. And so we'll see who those are going to be, but it is all based off of a scoring system that will label the top 4 players after each week's play, and they will be the captains, and they will draft every Monday, either Monday afternoon or Monday night. And so you're going to see a new spin of every single team every single week. So it's going to keep it interesting. It's going to keep it fun. It's going to keep the attacks and defenses moving. So we're really, really excited.
Yeah, and there's no coaches or GMs either. It's all like players are in control.
Oh, so yeah, this is all player driven, which is something that is very, very new to sports in general, but also for women's lacrosse. And I think it's actually great for women's sports for this to be really athlete driven and to be really athlete led. It puts the athlete there first compared to talking about GMs and talking about people who own the teams. We've taken ownership of every process, and that's what's made it really special.
Yes. All right. So you just mentioned it, but let's talk about it a little bit more, the draft. So each team captain each week is going to draft a new team. Why is this cool? Why do we like this?
This is awesome because it keeps it dynamic, right? It keeps things changing. So you can see different attackers, different defenses mesh together, as well as you can see a different way that teams can operate in the sense of what happens if a defender's a captain, what happens if an attacker's a captain, how does that coaching and mentality as a captain change? And I think that is going to be a really interesting fact to the game, especially when you think of we're competing as individuals when it comes to a scoring method, but we're also competing as a team. And that is the case everywhere you go in professional sports. But this time, right, you don't want to just highlight yourself. You're also highlighting your team. So then maybe hopefully the team's working, you can stay with that team and keep it going. And we saw a little bit of that in volleyball, where certain individuals tried to stay with each other. And it made it really interesting to see like who was going to be captain this week, who's going to be captain the next week, and how could you break up certain teams to break up their rhythm. And so I think that's what's going to make it really fascinating.
Yeah, there's a whole nother aspect of the game that has never existed before about these drafts, and it's like we're on Survivor and we're forming alliances. It's amazing. All right, but let's talk about
That's awesome.
scoring. Let's talk about the scoring, because that's the craziest part for people. I would say think fantasy sports as a starting place. It's like,
yes, I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, right?
Yes, it is totally individual. The scoring, obviously, right? As a goalie, I'm not going to have shots on goal. I'm not going to have potentially as many ground balls. I'm not going to have potentially as many cost turnovers as other players. So, right, the goalie scoring is going to be different than the scoring for an attacker or the scoring for a defender. They've built out this large algorithm that is way beyond my means, and not the level that I'm at. But I will say, right, it has been tested in multiple venues, and we're really excited to see it in action as we elevate this game, right? And to me, like, I do a lot of math during work, different types of math. So it is actually going to be really interesting to watch us quantify this and quantify who the top 4 players are.
Yeah, and you win points for your individual stat lines and also for team wins, right?
Yes,
so
that is correct.
You're motivated to win for your team, but also to do well individually. And there's MVP voting. That's your third way of getting points.
Yes.
Fans vote, players vote. A lot of people vote for that.
So many ways to be involved and to elevate players. And I think that's what makes it so special, is the interaction that's also coming for the community. Because we are so player-led and player-driven, we've also gone out of our way to ensure too, depending on what package you sign up for as a fan, you could be interacting with me just like this on a Zoom or a video chat, getting to know how I train.
Highly recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah, getting to know how I train, what I do. And I think that's really interesting aspect too, of fans can now interact with players in a different way than they can in any other league.
Yes. All right. And finally, last key point, the leadership. How does this league work from the top down?
Well, the best part about it is the leaders are amongst us. So we have a player-driven committee that meets with both Johns. We have 2 Johns as CEOs. So I like to call them both Johns. And so they meet solo, and they've come up and they've built this league out, but they've also met with John, and they've met with other support partners within AU to get the ball rolling. And I think that's the real awesome part, is that these are individuals that aren't coming up with this and have never picked up the stick before, right? Have never had to grind it out on the field. These are individuals that have been on the US team, that are trying out for the US team next week. These are individuals that have won national championships, that have set records at their schools, and they understand the game inside and out. And I think that's what makes it so special with it being player-led, is that our voice is there.
Yes, it's driven by the players at every level, and it's gets the athletes paid, and it gets love on the show. Oh my gosh, do we love that on this show?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And to be honest, right, you get paid more the better you play. So
play well, I guess. No pressure. All right.
I know, right? No pressure.
That I can't believe we did that so fast. That was great. There's your quick huddle. There's your rundown on
the huddle is awesome. I like that format. That is really cool.
Yeah, and you can look it up. You can find out more on Athletes Unlimited's website. Definitely do that if you're going to watch, but watch this league. It's so cool. It's really amazing. But Britt, thank you so much for being here. This was so much fun, and thanks for getting us ready for the season.
No, of course.
You can find Britt on Instagram. It's at brownies101, and you can also check out her work with CityLax at citylax.org. All right, that is our show, everybody. Thank you so much for watching She Plays Weekly. We'll see you next week.